Test.
Oh, wow. And it made the event go live in Discord, too. And it looks like we're live on YouTube.
Looks like
Awesome.
looks like I need to close out my YouTube window too because it was
Is it talking
being
to
a
you?
nice window.
Oh, and I'm going to pause our uploads because that sometimes you're jiggling a little. There we go.
Does my
All
audio
right.
sound all right? Just want to make sure I'm recording through my good mic.
I can hear you. You sound clear.
Good.
Good. Welcome to our live stream, everybody. We're gonna be recording a podcast here, and we're gonna be doing it live and talking to you guys, and hopefully you'll have some questions. Maybe some of you fine folks will call in. We have Michael Sizer in the waiting room, and we're gonna let him into the video. Just as soon as we're done doing our introduction. Am I doing this right, Jeremy?
Yeah. I think that's correct. I guess we'll just say, as far as like calling in, it's like call and talk radio. You probably need, like on the radio, how you need to turn down your radio. You probably need to turn off the YouTube feed, otherwise it'll get nasty.
It gets
I
confusing very quickly.
Yeah, but you don't have to do that now.
No.
Anyway, Pat, what do we got? What do you got going? What do
Well,
we
let
have
me.
going on today?
So we have it for YouTube. I'll do a little bit of an intro, like a episode intro, right? Welcome to the. Oh, let me do that again. I was almost going to say the wrong name of the podcast, Jeremy. Oh my goodness. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Create Invent podcast. I think we need a new tagline here because I don't know that the old one fits. But it's just me and Jeremy here today. We're going to be talking to Jeremy about his success on his JC Pro Macro Kickstarter. We're going to chat with you guys a little bit about our experiences lately on Tindy.com, where we sell our electronics. And we're going to be taking some live callers, and we have one in the waiting room. And if you're watching live, there's a link in the YouTube video description that you can click on, and you can come and talk to us.
Right, we'd love to talk to you, and I guess Pat, since we're doing it live, we're doing the podcast live today. We might as well do the coffee break immediately, right?
Oh, yes, I forgot we were going to do the coffee break immediately.
Yeah.
So,
Um, So first of all, let's give our shout out to our top five ish Patreons. We got Positive Waves, Brian Moses, Stuart Morrow, Christina Kearney, Raptor, Carl, and I don't know, is there somebody else we're possibly? I guess Michael Sizer too. So he's
yes.
got to give him a shout out.
And
And in fact,
Michael
is he?
Sizer's in the waiting room right now. He says he wants to talk to you, Jeremy.
Oh, well,
Should I let him in?
let's do it.
All right, we've only done this a few times before, so let's see what happens. It's thinking.
Just thinking about it. Oh, look at that. We can see. Oh, and look at this. Michael Sizer, he's got one of these on. I've got the smaller version, but you can tell he's a little bit more of a tough guy than me, I guess. He's got to
Oh, is his
show off his
the nicer utility belt?
utility band. Yeah. So, how you doing, Michael? Well, your band looks fantastic, but we can't hear you right now, unfortunately.
It is true. I cannot hear you, Michael.
I will say, look at Michael's sound installation. That's really he's really put a lot of work into that. That must when we can hear him, I'm sure it'll sound fantastic. So, but yeah, I guess on that subject, I got some sound installation too. I put that up. You can see that on the back there.
How do you think
And
it's sounding, Jeremy?
I think it sounds pretty good. I recorded something a while ago, and I was just thinking, like, I listened to it later. I was like, wow, I can hear my voice without really any. I'm sure there was some echo, but it did sounded better. I mean, whether that's, I don't know if that's, it could be mental, but I
Yeah, it's tough to
think it
say.
sounded pretty good.
We hung some acoustic panels in Brian Moses's office the other day, so our butter what streams can be a little nicer. And I think it made a difference. I haven't edited the last live stream yet, though, so I don't know exactly what it sounds like. But I went back and listened to one of our first live streams, and oh my goodness, both of us have so much reverb and echo, and it's so bad.
Oh yeah, well it's you made a lot of improvements. To be honest, that inspired me to do some of the more of the insulation. I've got some that you can't see on the front there, but also the thing you might notice. I guess Michael dropped off. Maybe he'll be back in a second. We'll just have to see. But um, one thing you inspired me. You can see now. I mean, if you've seen some of the old episodes, I hopefully look. Um, I don't want to say better, but more clear at least.
More
Um,
better, more
more
better,
more
Jeremy.
more better. Pat convinced me to hook up my Sony A6600 camera, which is a fantastic camera, to an HDMI adapter and actually just make it so I was taking as good a video as I do for YouTube videos or etc. And I've been really resistant to do that just because I just thought, well, we're a podcast, so I can flip on my webcam and just go. It was always my goal, but at the end of the day, 15 minutes, 5 minutes of setup isn't the biggest deal in the world.
No, it's not too bad.
Yeah. Oh, I
I,
also got a light that you can tune the what's the word? Turn the
brightness
hue of
and
it.
temperature. I bet you could do both.
Right, exactly. And it's got a little remote control. So, between those two things, my video should look a lot better now. Now it looks like Michael's back on the line. So what can we hear
Hi
you?
guys, can you hear me this time?
I can absolutely hear you, Michael. How
That's
are you
better.
doing tonight?
I'm well, thanks. How are you?
Not
Yeah,
too bad. Not
very
too
good.
bad.
I didn't expect you to take the call right away. If you guys wanted to talk about the JC Pro first, Macro Pro first, by all means, don't let me get in
Oh
the
no,
way.
it's the order we do things really doesn't matter because we can switch it around in post if we had to.
Cool.
Yeah. So we don't want you to have to wait along, wait around, wait along. That's not the word. But so what's going on, Michael? You're in Canada, correct? You're calling in from.
Yeah. I'm actually in my little studio, which is at a makerspace in Hamilton, Ontario. Here, where I sort of rent a studio space, which I use more of as an office, and I sort of use the makerspace as my sort of shop. As
Oh,
well,
that's very cool.
That's
Yeah.
fantastic.
Yeah, it is
I,
because it gives me access to, of course, to stuff that I otherwise just wouldn't have access to, right? So
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's at least with me, my local hackerspace, Tampa hackerspace. I think it's $50 a month, and just the amount of tools you have access to is fantastic. I mean, I don't take as much advantage of it as I should because I've got pretty much what I needed in my garage. But for somebody, if I was if I didn't have that, it is fantastic. But it's yeah.
yeah,
Anyway,
I mean, like,
makerspace is big fan.
yeah, I mean, I use I use the laser engraver quite a bit. They're setting up a 4x8 CNC router now.
Oh,
So
I want one of those.
yeah, so do I. But at least I can get to play with one pretty soon once they've got it set up here. So yeah,
But I used to have a 12x7 CNC router, but
did
that
you
was
really?
actually in inches though. So
Uh,
you know,
That's almost as big as my 3D printer, Jeremy.
almost. I mean, it was cool for the time, but now I've
Actually,
got a.
is that a K40 laser engraver you have, Jeremy, in the background? There's a blue device back there. I can't really see it
Oh,
now, but I've seen it in previous interviews or
hmm.
podcasts.
I do not have a laser engraver in my office.
Oh, you
I've
don't?
got a laser cutter in my garage, so you may have seen that on a YouTube video.
But
Okay,
that's a
maybe I
big
missed
Um,
red
that.
one. The K40s are like a powder blue color.
yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
I got a red and black branded laser, as they say, because it's
Okay.
who knows what they're. But I mean, it's been such a useful tool. I used it. I've been using it extensively with the JC Pro Macro 2 when I'm producing that, but we'll get into all that a little bit later. So Michael, what have you been working on these days since you're the
Well,
new?
as I've mentioned to you through email, actually, I'm kind of glad. to get the opportunity to chat with you guys because you're a couple steps ahead of me. You're with your JC Macro Pro 2, with doing your own production. I've got a product that I'm working on too. I happen to have it right here, but just coincidentally, in the breadboard stage. So I'm doing an air quality monitor circuit.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah, I think so. It's geared toward small farms, so people that have hobby farms for a couple of horses, what have you, when they can't afford, like obviously there are big industrial, expensive air quality monitors that you can buy into that integrate with your HVAC and all that, but they're so expensive. So I'm trying to get something that's a little more affordable that people that have a couple of horses or what have you can afford for their barns.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you what, that that's a beautiful breadboard. Mine generally don't look at that nicely set up. Looks like you actually put some effort into it.
I cursed in college. I graduated in college in '96, I think it was. But one of our final projects was we had to wire up a circuit. It was quite a big circuit. I think it wasn't quite this big, but it was big. But we were actually graded partially on how neat the board was. And I spent hours and hours and hours on that thing. And I guess the lesson learned there was, if you want to be able to troubleshoot a circuit, you can't just have a whole spaghetti mess of wires, right? Obviously, if it's a few LEDs or whatever, it's no big deal. But the more complicated a circuit gets at the breadboarding stage, you don't want what they call those elephant circuits, right? Where you can't even tell what's connected to what. So even though I cursed at the time, it was a lesson learned. So it's benefiting me today, although I don't want to admit that to my professor from back then.
Yeah, no, I get that. It's when I first started working, I was like, well, what does it matter if something doesn't look good or whatever? And somebody told me, he said, if something looks, I won't use the phrase he's used exactly, but if something doesn't look very good, people aren't going to be willing to give it a chance. But if it maybe it looks a little bit better and they have a hard time with it to begin with, they're going to give it a little bit more respect. And I think that's one element. And then also, as you said, troubleshooting. If things are labeled and if things are labeled and it's neat, there is some real value to that. And I think that's maybe something you don't. Well, a professor can tell you, or you can learn through experience, I guess.
Yeah, well, especially and with breadboarding, because they can be a little bit flaky. Sometimes the traces don't hold very well, and little wires break sometimes. It's just, you want to be able to tell what's connected to what fairly easily.
I was going to complain about breadboards today because I watched Jeremy's video putting his how to put his JC Pro macro pad together, and he was complaining about one of his breadboards that if you put the unsoldered pin headers in, to help line it up for soldering, that sometimes pushes the pins out. That means, Jeremy, you're using one of the crummy Chinese breadboards that doesn't work well. It's too hard to insert things into it. I don't know the. I don't know the polite way to say that.
I'm a big fan of cheap electronics, so I'm.
But all my breadboards are cheap, but half of them are like that. They're all the same price, but half of them came from somewhere else where I can't. You barely push anything into the holes. It's awful.
50% of the time, it works every time.
Yeah.
I remember in college we had the same breadboard for the whole 2 years, and so you'd eventually, of course, some of the tracks stopped working. So I remember you'd take a marker and you'd write on it, say just scratch it out, so you remember not to use that track anymore. Otherwise,
don't use this row anymore.
Yeah, exactly. That's right.
Yeah.
Oh man, it's amazing how much electronics have come down in price. I mean, imagine at the time, because now it's like, well, breadboard's not working. Just
spend another 50 cents or $1. I don't know what they are this year. I know everything's a little different this year. I haven't bought one in a while.
It's incredible. They like with this project I'm doing. If you had told me in college that in 18 or 20 years you're going to design a circuit that's run by a microcontroller and you're going to plug it into your USB port on your computer. Well, I wouldn't have known what a USB port was, but you're going to plug it into a serial port on your computer and use some fairly simple programming language to get this thing running. I would have thought you're crazy. I thought, microcontrollers like the engineers use microcontrollers, right? It's amazing the changes. I mean, granted, it's been 20 years since I was last doing it before, but but still, it's still pretty amazing how we can, and then of course the fact that you can order stuff for so cheap from overseas. It's
Oh
just,
yeah.
you know,
Well, what's amazing is you guys are familiar with the Teensy microcontroller boards
mhm.
or anyways, the Teensy 4.0, it's got a 600 megahertz processor, I believe, and you can overclock it to like a gigahertz or something. And it's like $20. It's
Yeah.
about the size of your index finger. And, it just blows my mind because, I think when I started using computers, I mean, that was just an unthinkable amount of power for a desktop
Hmm.
PC. And, it's,
And it's
anyway,
all
it's,
in
it's
one chip now.
all in one
All
little
the
chip.
RAM,
It's,
all the flash, all the CPU is on one little chip on that board.
yeah. And I don't know, it's just amazing how things have gone. It's like, and somebody, he was joking, but he said, maybe they just have a alien spacecraft that touched down somewhere and they crashed, and they're just siphoning out the technology little by little. You know, that's how my computers have, you know.
Along those lines, I was YouTube recommended a video to me the other day, and the EEV blog. I forget the fella's name. He's been blogging for years.
Yeah.
It looks like you're familiar with him. So
Yeah,
I
I know. I'm trying to remember the guy's name. It's Australian guy, right?
yeah,
That's
that's
not
right.
his
Yeah.
name, but
Anyway, yeah. So I happened to click on the video, and he was showing how I don't know if you're familiar with the website LCSC. It's like a branch of JCB, the PCB manufacturer, JCB or JLC.
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 Yeah, JLC. Yeah. So they
Yeah.
have a division with a website called LCSC. And it's sort of like an alternative to Mouser and to DigiKey, right? But it's out of China. And on this video, he was showing a microcontroller. Now, I don't remember any of the specs. It was small. It was an 8-pin little mic, but it was, if I'm not mistaken, I think it was 70 cents. And it was an 8-pin microcontroller. It might have been $1.70 American, but I think it was actually 70 cents. So unbelievable.
It
Yeah.
is. It is unbelievable. So
Yeah, and
Yeah.
Michael, it sounds like you're wanting to switch your design up there from being on a prototype on a breadboard to being a manufactured PCB. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's the goal. Um, so basically, if maybe I'll take a minute and just tell you what it is and what it's about.
yeah,
Please.
please.
Thank you. So basically, um, like I mentioned earlier, there are very expensive sensor systems you can buy, but with those systems, I mean, just the sensors alone, not even the accompanying circuitry or anything like that, but just the actual sensors themselves can be up in the hundreds of dollars. Now they're very accurate, mind you. I mean, they use their little they call them NDIR sensors. They have little chambers in them basically, and they uh, they beam infrared light through them, and of course they know which frequencies are going in, and then based on which frequencies don't pass through, they're able to sense what is in the air based on the frequency blocking and what have you. Those are very expensive. So along the more consumer and hobbyist line, you guys may have seen them before. I expect you probably have, but for people who haven't, you have these MQ sensor series sensors. Um, they're very different. They're not as accurate, but they're not nearly as expensive. Like these range anywhere from a couple of bucks to, a few of the expensive ones might be $20. And they work
Okay.
differently. They work on the principle of they react. They have internal resistors that react to gases in the air, and they change the resistance based on what gases are in contact with them.
Mm.
One of the challenges, though, is that they're not very specific in terms of, like, so for example, I don't remember specifically which particular sensors sense which gases off the top of my head, but you might get, say, an MQ2, and I don't remember, it might be CO2 it detects, but it may be partially sensitive to methane, for example. And so you'll know that one of those gases is present, but you don't know for sure which one is which. So what I've
Okay.
done is I've kind of gone through a matrix and thought, okay, well, this one senses this, and so does this. So if I monitor both of them, then I know as long as both of them are giving an output, then it's in fact that particular gas, right? Whereas if only one of them, well, then it's methane. Or so I've designed the circuit based on that. And it runs off an Atmega AT Atmega 328P, which is the same thing, same microcontroller that's in the Arduino Uno. And I'm a little surprised that nobody has done this yet. So I'm nervous that I'm going to find out somewhere along the way why it's not being done. Maybe.
I know this feeling.
Yeah, but I've got it to the stage now where I've got a physical circuit built. I'm still waiting on 3 sensors and the LCD for for the serial port to display. But I'm moving on now to writing the program, so that should happen within a few weeks at the most, I would hope.
Very cool.
And then I'll have a working prototype at that point.
That's awesome. And it's very responsible of you to make an actual breadboard beforehand. I feel like sometimes I'm guilty of just jumping to the PCB and then regretting it occasionally.
Well, I knew with this circuit, it's a little too complicated for me to just jump into it, right? But I know what you mean when it's smaller circuits, yeah.
Right.
I've
Well,
been
that's
keeping
awesome.
my eye on various air quality sensors that'll integrate with something like Home Assistant, the home automation stuff I use, the open source home automation stuff
Right.
that I use at home. But
Yeah.
I don't even know what I want to know about air quality. I don't know enough to know what I'm looking for.
That was one of the challenges too. Was I first had to do some research on what are the specific gases in barns that can accumulate. Which are the
Yep.
ones that you're actually concerned about.
A
So there was
much
some
more
research.
complicated problem than I'm trying to solve.
Well, yeah, yes and no. I mean, it's not a super complicated. That's why, like I said, I'm a bit nervous that I'll find out why it's actually not already in the market. Is because it's not terribly complicated. I mean, I had to do my homework, of course, but it's not. There's no rocket science involved either. So I'm hoping I'm just lucky enough that I happen to be the first person to
Yeah.
We'll see, I
Sometimes
guess.
somebody's got to be the first, right? So
Yeah. So
what is you monitor this air quality? Are you looking? What do you do with that data? What are you looking to? What's your final goal of this project?
right. So at this point, this particular circuit that I've built here, it will display on an LCD, and I've got some RGB LEDs where they'll go blue to warn you that a certain level is getting high, and red when it's at an unacceptable level, right?
Right.
But of course, it's not that difficult to put in, a Bluetooth, compatible board or something like that, and then you could have it notify your phone, or even now with, and I haven't looked into exactly how to do this yet, but now with Arduinos in the cloud, it's probably wouldn't be that difficult to have it alert you and send you an email or something, so you don't even have to be on the property. And then ultimately, I think what probably would be the wisest thing would be to integrate it somehow with Wi-Fi so that you could use a Wi-Fi controlled outlet, and then you could have it turn on say an exhaust fan automatically, right? That would be the
For sure.
ultimate, I think. That would be the most.
Those of you
That would
listening
make the product.
can't see me and Pat shaking our heads. Yes, that's a great idea.
This is true. I've been nodding the whole time.
Yeah. Well, I think that would make sense, right? I mean, it's nice to just to know at least even if the gases are present, because at minimum you can react yourself. But ideally, I think people would certainly rather that it automatically turned on a fan, or at least notified them remotely. And
Yeah,
I don't think
absolutely.
that should be too difficult to arrange.
Yeah, for sure. It's amazing. Just like we were saying earlier, it's amazing the processing power, but it's amazing that the way you were able to integrate everything. I mean, even 10 years ago, you couldn't do this kind of thing.
No.
But,
No,
and
that's right. 10 years ago, you would have had to build your own dedicated circuit, and it would be completely independent of anything else, right? Whereas now you can integrate it with and I mean Wi-Fi. I mean, so many properties have Wi-Fi now. It's not, I know I do a lot of maintenance work on animal sanctuaries where they have barns and what have you, and it's very common to be able to pick up Wi-Fi from the house in the barn. So
Yep. And even
it's
if you
just
can't, cellular data is getting very
exactly.
inexpensive. There are some very low bandwidth data plans you can get that are just
That's right.
$10 or less a month to connect
Yeah.
to connect your barn up to the
Mhm.
Internet of Things.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. So
Yeah, I was just complaining about this stuff today, Michael and Jeremy, when my friend Alex was here. I was complaining that 20 years ago, if we had these Arduinos and 3D printers and CNC machines back in the time when I was modifying cars,
Yeah.
it would have been tremendous. I was talking about we used to buy this device. It was about $300 that went between the airflow sensor and the computer, and the airflow sensor gave output of frequency. The higher the
Okay.
frequency, the more air was flowing, and
Right.
you just had little knobs like a graphic equalizer to adjust those frequencies to, to trick the
Yeah.
computer into thinking there was more or less air than there actually was. And you could totally do that with a $5, maybe not an Arduino, but one of a Teensy or somebody would have no trouble in reading a frequency and outputting different ones and doing mappings and things.
Well, yeah,
Absolutely.
we were talking about that with Nova Spirit on the episode 52, I guess, right? So that was,
Yeah.
And you said you used to use the Palm Pilot for that kind of
Yeah.
thing.
Well, we used the Palm Pilot for just the data logging. It came over a serial port, and you'd log. It would 60 or 80 times a second. It would tell you the injector duty cycle and how much airflow there was, and whether the knock sensor was going off, and how many degrees of timing advance you had, and things like that. But the more expensive device was just to modify one single signal, so that we could run more fuel than the computer. You'd put bigger fuel injectors in, but the computer couldn't handle that. It would. You'd run a bigger fuel injector at the same duty cycle you expect to, and you get way too much fuel, and it just doesn't work. You had to rein everything in a bit.
So ultimately,
pull
what
it
were you?
back.
Were you controlling the fuel to air ratio? Is that what you were doing? Or
Yes, that's the ultimate goal. Because we would use our cars had 450 cc per minute fuel injectors, and we would upgrade those to 550 or 650, so we could
Okay.
run bigger turbochargers and
Ah.
pump more air in. And when you put a 650 in instead of a 450, you get almost 33% more fuel just by default. Just by
Yeah.
putting it in, because it flows 30%
Okay.
harder. So you'd have to tone that back
Right.
a
And
bit.
but now you're a drone man, I guess, not a
Oh, it's so much cheaper flying FPV drones, Jeremy. So much cheaper.
uh well, Pat, do you want to talk about Tindy a little bit? I guess I think we'll maybe.
Sure. Well, before you ask me that, Michael, how are you planning on marketing this? I mean, I don't know. That's a pretty broad question I'm asking, but
Yeah. Well, it's actually that's something I have. I'm aware that I don't have the background in manufacturing and in marketing, and so that's one of the concerns I have. I have a. I was talking recently to a fella I know. The company Zeiss. They make lenses.
oh yeah,
Yeah.
Well, I happen to know, just by sheer chance, I happen to know someone who's fairly high up, and he had some contacts for me. He said, go and see a friend of his who apparently he's involved with. I guess if you have an idea or some sort of invention or whatever, and it's not one of those. I know there are all kinds of scams. Bring us your idea, and those are scams. But this guy's apparently legit, where he helps people that are getting started with the new idea to protect themselves and avoid pitfalls. So that's a really broad area that I really know nothing about. I'm going to go consult with him and get myself started. I won't be surprised. I mean, I guess if it flies, but it stays fairly small scale, then I have no problem just doing it myself. Running it off a website of my own, whatever. If it turns out it's quite popular and more successful than just a few units here and there, I don't know. Maybe I can license it off to someone who knows how to do this stuff. Who knows, right? We'll see.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, that's awesome. Of course, Pat and I think this kind of thing is exciting. It's part of what we do.
Mhm.
Um, that's awesome. So Michael, you're going to launch this in a while, but for now, where can we find you? I know you've got a YouTube channel, correct? So,
Yeah, Maker
um,
Mike Sizer on YouTube. Yeah, I've got makermikesizer.com, but I haven't set it up yet. So eventually that'll be set up, and I'll set it up like a products page and what have you. But
yep. So
probably
don't
YouTube
anybody
right
go
now.
there to the website unless it's later, unless it's
Yeah,
not today when it's
Exactly.
A few months or a
by,
year,
by
check
the
it
by
out.
the time we produce this, he'll have it set up.
Oh, I don't know about that.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe, maybe not.
But yeah, I've got a few videos up on YouTube now. I've got to get one up soon again. It's been a while since I put one up. So Maker Bike Size are on YouTube.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I think it's interesting. It's not why I don't. It's nice to be out there when one form or another, because I feel like that does maybe give you a bit of a built-in audience for this kind of thing. I guess so.
Well,
But yeah, anything we could do to help you along, we're love to hear about this kind of thing. And
thank you. I really appreciate it. And that's the other, just very quickly before I sign off, that's another aspect that, something that's completely new is what social media, the avenues that opens, right? I mean, just the communication and connectivity we have now. Again, back in college, I would have never understood. You couldn't have explained to me what this, what social media would do for us, right?
well, yeah, it's amazing. I mean, this podcast I started, or I didn't even start it. A guy named Max Maker. He invited me to
Mhm.
do it with him, and he lives in Germany. And it's like, we're good friends now. And I talk to Pat all the time. We get along pretty
True.
well too. And
I
then,
tolerate Jeremy just fine.
when we, it's amazing. We're talking two time zones at least. I guess. Are you Western? Or are you?
I'm in Central Time Zone.
No, Michael
me?
Otto.
Uh-oh.
Well, it doesn't matter. Anyway, we're all over the place.
I'm Eastern, so I think you and I are in the same. Jeremy, you and I are in
Okay.
the same time zone. Yeah, you match New York, right? So
That's right.
yeah, so do I.
Yeah, I think I put New York and Miami time and Frostproof. If you know where Frostproof is, then I'd be very surprised. So it's near Orlando. So,
Okay. Cool.
um,
Well, I really appreciate you giving me the time, guys. I really do. Thank you.
This was
yeah, well,
fun.
thanks. Always
Yeah.
fun to meet new people and stuff. So anyway, all the best, and hopefully we'll hear from you about your successful project, however you decide to pursue that. So
That's what
Thank
I'm
you.
hoping to hear is success.
You and me both. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
all right,
All right.
take it easy.
Take care.
Well, Pat, that was really nice to hear from him.
It was.
you
That was
know,
a cool conversation.
Yeah, and I guess it's a nice lead into with something else we were going to talk about. That well, we could talk about Kickstarter or Tindy, but I was thinking Tindy as far as somewhere that's nice to sell stuff.
I'm
think.
very pleased with Tindy. I've been selling on Tindy for 4 years, 3 or 4 years now. Does that sound
Yeah.
right? I believe that. I'm going to
Maybe
say that
so.
that's true.
In fact, I think that's how I met you, because I haven't really sold on Tindy for that long, maybe like a year, a little more than a year. But Pat was a seller there, and I actually interviewed him for Tindy for their blog. So
That's true.
because I write I have I've written for their blog for several years now, and now I sell stuff for them, and that's actually probably become bigger business than even the writing side of things there, at least at this point. And it's interesting. Like, it's nice to be able to write about something that you think is cool. Because sometimes I don't want to say I don't. What am I trying to say? Sometimes you have to make a buck, but sometimes you can write about something that you really think is awesome, and
Yeah.
Tindy qualifies as that category. I
Well, that's
think.
awesome.
Um,
Jeremy, there's something we didn't say.
what's
So I'm
that?
going to ask you the question. What on earth is Tindy.com?
Oh, yeah. So Tindy, well, it's that I was gonna make a joke about it being a dating site, but that's not.
We made that joke with Max Maker
We,
a long
I'm
time
sure.
ago.
Yeah, that joke has probably been made thousands of times, maybe. But no, Tindy is basically a website where you can sell indie electronics. So think about like Etsy or maybe even eBay, but like basically focused on electronics that more or less you made, or maybe supplies for making something. And it doesn't even have to be electronics. It could be something that you laser cut or 3D printed. It's just kind of a almost a to use one of our former guests, kind of his almost like focused on electronics or digital manufacturing. Kind of thinking about Winston
Yeah.
Moy's kind of term for it, I guess.
Yeah, I don't think there's actually rules about what you can or can't sell. There must be some sort of rules, but
Yeah, I don't know. They have an approval process, so I guess it was if
too weird.
yeah. I mean, I don't know. I don't know. Maybe there's not rules. There are rules, I'm sure, but if you're selling, a blanket or something, there's better.
There's better places, but I bet they
Better.
wouldn't say no. You can't list your blanket in your store. I bet you could crochet just like Etsy, and I bet they would let you.
Yeah, I bet they'd love like a crocheted resistor or something.
Yeah,
Something like
I
that.
bet there's already somebody doing that.
Probably is.
bet
Maybe I saw that somewhere. But Pat, you were saying now I know there's a reason you want to talk about Tindy, and I think it's because your sales have been spiking
My
for the
sales
last
have been
month or so.
fantastic the last few weeks, and it's not Tindy's fault; it's YouTube's fault. But this is I mostly want to thank you guys at Tindy. Thank you, Tindy, because my wife wanted to start an Etsy store. She's been making for Christmas. She made about 20 or 30 of these catch-all trays for her workers at her company, for her employees.
Oh, that's awesome! And it looks like it's just basically three trays. It looks like a very small lunch tray or something.
It kind of does, but
But
this
it's
was
beautiful,
fancy.
though.
I had to get it's got a little slot in the back for you'll sit your phone in here and it tilts back. It's pretty well thought out. She did a good job. But starting an Etsy, there's a lot of Etsy shops, and we wanted to get her a little bit of traffic, right? So you remember a bunch of episodes, 2 episodes ago, the last episode, we talked to my friend Alex about his soda machine adapter.
Right.
He's been selling that on Etsy, and he got sick of selling it. He didn't like doing the work to sell it. I mean, it's a longer story than that, but that's enough. That's a good summary.
Okay.
And he said,
he got
"Pat,
tired.
do
He
you
got
wanna
tired of
sell
all
it?"
the money. He got tired of all the money rolling in.
Yeah, it's just
I
too much
understand
money
that.
rolling in.
It's too
But-
too heavy.
And I didn't know that I really wanted to sell it, but Chris wanted to get her Etsy store up and running. I figured, 100 soda adapter sales in her Etsy store, that would be a good jump start to get her into the analytics, to get her into the SEO of Etsy. And we put it up there. She sold like 30 of them in the first few days, and then Etsy just closed her shop down. Just her brand new shop, they closed it. They didn't say why. They didn't tell us we did anything wrong. We mailed things we had already mailed out. They refunded the orders automatically. Oh yeah, it was awful. Yeah,
Really?
yeah.
So what you're saying is Tindy wants you to be successful, but not too successful.
No, Etsy.
Or not Tindy. Sorry, not Tindy.
Oh, we're gonna have to edit that out. Cut.
Yeah, that's what. Yeah, what you're saying is that Etsy wants you to not be too successful right off the bat. They want you to kind of like
Ramp into it or something.
ramp into it or something.
Yeah, we must have triggered some sort of fraud detection of some. But you would think they would tell you something, right? They
You would
told
think
us.
so.
We've asked. They haven't said anything. We don't know what happened. So
Huh.
I was hustling to get the part up on Tindy quickly because we wanted to be able to fulfill those orders. And I was trying to go fast, and they kept rejecting. Tindy kept rejecting I didn't have the good pictures yet. I didn't have the new ones printed. We had them all boxed up, ready to go. I was like, we got, but we got it taken care of. It all worked out. And
Good,
I think
good.
we've sold 50 or 60 of them so far in about 2 weeks.
Well, that's really good. So, yeah, I guess that's the thing. Tindy, at least at this point, they're big enough, but they're, I guess, small enough that it still kind of feels like. I guess I always wonder if my perspective is a little skewed because I know I work for the head person at Tindy, I guess. So, I can get a response pretty easily, but hopefully, I imagine it's similar for other people, though maybe not the same.
Well,
You know what I'm saying?
Google told me
am I
there are 2.5 million people selling on Etsy.
okay?
So you are in a sea of everyone,
Okay.
right? I can't imagine it works well. Well, it
'Cause I
probably works
guess-
well if you're doing well, but
Yeah. I guess it's just I don't want to. What am I trying to say? I feel like I have a great experience, almost like it's like, like your friends or family or, not, you know what I'm saying? It's like,
Yeah.
I don't feel like it's quite an anonymous thing, but maybe that's more me than the general public, if that makes, I don't want to give them, you know what I'm saying? I don't want to say something where it's not necessarily true.
Well, I can tell you from my long history, my long working history, Jeremy. Every time I've moved from one company to another, it's always been to smaller companies. I started at like a Fortune 30 or 40, 20, I don't know, a large company, right?
Right.
And I mean, I was only I was just a little
Yeah,
peon, right?
sure.
It doesn't matter. But I prefer the smaller companies. There's probably too small is too small, but I don't want to be at the 50,000 person. I don't want to be employee number 58,200 at a 60,000 employee company.
I think that's wise. I think there's a bit of a sweet spot because I think if you get
Mm-hmm.
too small, it's like a family-owned company. That's great, but if you're not the family, you're not going to be the
Yep.
president of that company. Whereas, last place I worked, they were you know, they were a I don't want to say they were a small manufacturer, but they were not a big company, but not a really small company, but kind of on the small side. And I
Mm-hmm.
felt like they had treated their employees really well, and there was a lot of our opportunity for advancement if you were, I guess if you were advancing, if you were,
If you
I don't
join,
know,
and you don't even have to join the family.
you don't even know how to
You don't
join
have to marry into it or something.
well, actually, it was a family-owned company, but it was big enough that you know people were people were doing pretty well that weren't in the family. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, yeah. Anyway, um,
But I think what
ex-
we're saying is we have nice things to say about Tindy.
we have nice things to say about Tindy, even though we got a little off track there. So, um, yeah.
But
So,
Jeremy, I want to ask you about Kickstarter.
oh, okay.
Is
Yeah.
that
Well, let's. What do you got
yeah?
to ask me about
Well, what
Kickstarter?
is Kickstarter, Jeremy? No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
So, well, yeah.
Everybody
Well, let's
knows
just
that
say,
Kickstarter is where you go when you want money,
right.
right?
Well, so Kickstarter is basically like you have an idea, and people pay to Kickstarter to basically get you going.
Yeah.
And so on Kickstarter, I had a macro pad that I've been working on for quite a while.
Jeremy, what is a
Yes.
macro pad?
So so a macro pad basically it's like a little keyboard where you can put in different functions for different keys. So my macro pad has eight keys plus a rotary encoder, which is probably the coolest thing about it.
Now, a
It's
rotary
also
encoder for people watching, that's a knob.
right. It's a knob. So basically, like if you hook it up, the most basic use is that you can turn the volume up on your stereo, not stereo, but on your computer, and
On your
you can
hi-fi.
on your hi-fi, on your tube amp, and you can assign the keys as like stop, fast forward, back, or whatever else, and maybe you could have a browser mode. And mine actually has some of the GPIO the input output pins broken out, so you can actually control like a fan or anything else like that you want. So it's basically like a keyboard that's entirely customizable however you want it. It's using an ATmega 32U4, which is basically like an Arduino that you can program to act as a keyboard. So anything you want, you could have it like type words in, you can have it control your media, you can have it anything you want. And I use it on my Macintosh computer. I think people have used it on Windows. Pat's used it with Linux and I believe a Raspberry Pi.
Yep.
So it's
I use mine every day on my Linux machine here.
nice. I'll tell you what, the one thing, anyway, this Kickstarter's been pretty successful. But the one thing that's annoying about it,
Now,
about
Jeremy,
developing
you
this,
haven't made $1 million, right?
no,
On
I've
this
made
Kickstarter.
I made like a mil dollars, as in a thousand, a couple mil. I've I've
Good.
made I've made a couple mil,
Milli
which is
dollars.
milli dollars. So
Thousandths of a dollar. No.
yeah, yeah. But no, it's interesting because I developed this. The whole story kind of started a couple of years ago. I think I saw Adafruit's. They had a teensy thing where you could control the volume and I think maybe like mute stuff with with an encoder like this, like a rotary knob. I was like, oh, that's awesome. I built one, and then I built another one that maybe had some other functionality. Yada yada yada. A couple years later, I figured out how to do PCB design. It's took a class on that with a guy named Anul. He's very good. Very helpful. That was awesome using KiCad or KiCad depending on your sect. I guess is that the right word?
Boy, I don't know. I don't even know how to say it. I've only ever seen it written down.
No, I think I think there's like an argument about it or something.
We
And
should
then in
ask
my head,
Mr. KiCad.
Mr. KiCad. Anyway, I learned how to design PCBs, and after a while, I was like, oh, I could make a keypad, and then I could actually have it mass produced, and it's really wouldn't be. I mean, it's not. I don't want to say it wouldn't be that hard. It was a bit hard, but it wasn't like that hard. And
So we want to
it's
know how's the Kickstarter was. You were fully funded. You broke past your minimum funding goal.
right. So my the way Kickstarter works, put a minimum funding level down, which I think I put down as $2,000. Basically, if you don't make that, you're not gonna do the project at all.
Yeah.
So
Now, my
kind of
understanding, you'd use a minimum for, like, if you're having PCBs manufactured, if you're manufacturing 5 PCBs, then I'm going to make up numbers. You get 5 PCBs, maybe they're $20 each, but if you get 200 PCBs made, maybe they're only $3 each. So you need to reach a certain volume to be able to sell the product for a particular price, and the minimum helps you get there.
right,
Right.
exactly. So that minimum can be extremely helpful in some cases. In my case, it didn't matter a whole lot, so I set it fairly low just to kind of maybe not ensure that I would make it, but make a pretty good chance of that. And I ended up funding it by several 100%, which is it's a good thing, but it's a little bit scary too because you sell these macro pads, which I think I've sold something like, let's just say 190,
How about we say
let's just say
200?
we'll say it's 200. We'll say around 200 to make it a round number. And then at that point, I've got to make all these things. Um, so that's been it's been a challenge for sure. But I guess the one thing that was good about it is, and maybe the reason people were willing to fund it is that I had a working prototype. I mean, it wasn't like I was just coming out of the blue, like, yeah, I want to make, you know, something I have no idea what to do. I had something that actually did work. Took some good video of it. Actually, I'll say Pat took some good video of it. So that was very, very nice of him to help me with that. Pat took some good video of it. I took some video of it. Let's see, the DIY music projects guy. I think I'm butchering that, but anyway, some other people, another person took some video of it, and we put this together and basically had a video that said this is something you can do, and this is what you can do with it, and people bought into it, and including people I know, through you, Pat, and some people I know from Camp Hackerspace. Some personal friends have bought these, and I guess
But then
that's one thing.
190 people you've never met have also bought them.
Well, yeah, it's amazing. People have this kind of faith in me that I will fulfill this, and you at this point I've fulfilled over 50% of it, and I've got another well over a month and a half to go on it. So, right now I'm early in the whole process, so that's a good thing, and I think
Have you had any
especially.
trouble securing all the parts that you need to assemble these?
So that's a good question because I think being, I want to keep wanting to say 2020, but being 2022, we're still having a bit of supply chain issues at this point. And so if I was late on it, I think people would probably cut me a little slack if I had a good excuse. But
Well,
honestly,
even in normal times, I know it's easy to get 1 or 2 parts for prototypes, and it's easy to get 1,000 parts sometimes for manufacturing. but getting 50 or 100, those numbers in between there, sometimes that's hard to find a supplier.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I think the good thing was I had most of this stuff kind of worked out. I think today kind of Michael was alluding to a little bit when he was on. It's pretty easy to get stuff from overseas. I think AliExpress is where I got a lot of things, and then stuff that I needed a little bit more immediate, even some stuff that I've maybe forgotten or didn't have enough. I can buy that off Amazon.
Sometimes
Um,
I click on things on AliExpress, Jeremy, like an Arduino Nano or something. And buying two or three is cheap, but then when you go up to 10, 11, 12, there's some weird things that happen sometimes to the pricing.
yeah,
Where it goes up, the shipping goes from free, and then it's $80 shipping, and I don't
yeah.
understand it. I don't know how it works.
I've noticed that with the shipping a little bit. Sometimes the shipping will be free or very cheap, and then you put it up to two or three, and then it goes up. But honestly, it's been fairly reasonable, and I think it goes from a certain really cheap, really slow shipping to a little bit less cheap, a little bit not as slow shipping
Okay.
sometimes. At least that's been my experience. So it's been definitely a learning experience. I guess we're kind of talking about the laser earlier too. Some of these parts on this are laser cut. In fact, like the base, I cut that on my laser, so
You're
it's
you're
nice to
doing
have
those in house in your workshop.
doing those in house. Yeah, so I spent a decent amount of money on acrylic for it, but it's kind of cool to be able to assemble these and have your laser working. So even if you're not doing that good of a job, you can say, well, at
At
least
least
something's
somebody in the
getting
house
done.
is working.
At least- exactly. And even better if you're slacking off and if your 3D printer's running and your laser's going. I mean,
Are
you
you
know,
really slacking off? If the machinery is doing work, the robots are working.
no, I don't think so. I mean, you told them what to do, so.
It's true.
But but yeah, so I guess trying to think. So yeah, I mean, I guess marketing was a big thing. Just trying to have a good video up, putting a good description, basically just justifying why I could do it. And I think one of the reasons I could say that I could do it, even though I hadn't ever done a Kickstarter before. Actually, I'll say there's two reasons. First of all, I could say that legitimately say I've shipped hundreds of parts on Tindy. Mostly something called an Easy Fan 2 board, which has been a nice little project. And the other thing is the fact that I worked in manufacturing before I started working for myself, mostly doing writing and stuff. So that I think being able to say, well, I know how you can go through a process. Yeah, I know how you can. Oh yeah, it's an Easy
Easy
Fan 2
fan
board.
too. I have
Yeah,
one
base.
now, Jeremy.
Oh, nice. Yeah, so basically this little board is just it's a transistor, diode, and resistor. Basically, just makes it easy to turn on a fan on a Raspberry Pi. Something that I thought was just kind of annoying because you need a cooling fan for Raspberry Pi, but you don't want to have it running all the time. But we could talk about that a little later if you want, Pat.
Yeah, we don't. I didn't mean to sneak that in here. That was.
But yeah, well, I appreciate it.
But say
Um,
if you fulfilled half the order, are you doing them in a particular order, like the easy ones to ship first, or there's some orders that are waiting on parts, or how is this? Am I asking too? Are these hard hitting questions?
no, no. Well, as you know, we're a hard hitting podcast. We were, so we gotta ask tough questions. Um, yes. So my Kickstarter, and just to kind of to finish up what I was thinking a little bit. I worked in manufacturing, so I was able to set up a manufacturing cell, work cell with some bins and stuff. But I think that was really helpful. But as far as actually fulfilling it, I get these boards made and checked. So I had one tier that is just the boards, so I could put those in a bag and ship them. I mean, that was very easy. So hopefully people have gotten them, and maybe some people have put them together. I don't really know. Second tier was kits, and that's where things get a little bit harder because you've got about my kits have about 20 parts in them. And when I thought about it to begin with, I was like, I was thinking this was an easy project, but now that I'm doing it, maybe it's actually a fairly somewhat advanced project. I mean, it's more than I thought it would be, just because you've got to put all these parts together. And you know what I did? I put together basically like a little manufacturing cell. So I've got all these pick bends. You can just go pick all your parts, final parts, and then before that you've got a kind of bag of assembled parts, or not assembled parts, but small parts that are used to put together everything. So, basically you put together a small
Fasteners
bag
and
of
things.
parts, fasteners and stuff, and then you put together the final parts, and you get your options. Um, so that was the second hardest part, and that was the kits. The hardest one though would be the actual assembled parts that I assemble them, I program them, I send them to you, and hopefully you can just plug it in and use it. Um, so naturally I did the boards first, but I didn't really do the kits second, because what I really wanted to do was test that everything worked. So if I put the kits together and basically with a fully assembled, I could test them in house, and if there was a problem, I'll solve it, as they might say. And um, but if there's a kit, then I send them out, and people are not
People
it's
will
not
be
working.
disappointed if it's not working.
People would be disappointed. But so basically, I put together a bunch of assemblies, and I also did like basically a test run, which I think there was actually this one that I put together. Basically, packed up a fake part, took it out and assembled it myself, and that's what I did the assembly video based on that. Since then, I know our friend Alex, friend of the show. He's actually put his kit together and programmed it. So I was thrilled to hear it worked correctly, even though I had no reason to think it wouldn't work. But you know, I
Yeah,
guess
but you
there's
never know until the first one gets out there. Not
you never
necessarily
know.
the first one, but the first one you get feedback on.
Right, and you got to think, well, have I put enough documentation out there that people can put it together? I will say the assembly documentation, the video I made, I think is pretty good. But the programming video, when I when I when I took the video, I think I had two microphones on, so it sounds terrible.
Oh no.
And I was doing it with my old webcam, I think, which didn't really work. Anyway, it may be helpful, but it's not very good. So yeah, hopefully I have something better out soon. So anyway, you just gotta. So far, the vast amount of feedback has been very good. Two people did not get their knobs, which I corrected that.
You know who'd mess
And
that up?
well, tell you what, I did I did mess that up. And the reason about this, the reason I did that, the reason I messed it up, and I guess it's something I would do a little bit differently if I was doing a Kickstarter again, is I guess what I've been thinking is if you're doing a Kickstarter, it's fine to have options, but really what you want to have add-ons, not options, because the way I was doing it, I'd put together my standard parts, pick, and then you say, okay, option one, option two, option three, option four. So you think, okay, there's an enhanced knob and a standard knob. So this is the enhanced knob. And if it doesn't have a thing for enhanced knob, then it's like, okay, I don't need that option. But you do need that option. You need the
Yeah.
standard knob. And that's I think where I got screwed up a couple times.
Do you want my advice there, Jeremy?
Sure.
You should have two bins, right? You should always have to take something out of every column of bins, and there should be two bins there, regular and nice. So
It's a
you
good idea.
always pull one out. And maybe not even put them in the box. You pull them out of the bin and put them in put a thing in front of each bin, so every slot should have
Huh.
has to have something.
That's interesting. But then if you've got add-ons, then you don't pull anything out of that bin.
Oh.
See,
Yeah.
here's my I've got a twofold solution for this. First of all, in the future, I think what I would do is have either no knob or an enhanced knob, or just not have that be an option either way. Just say you're getting a knob.
Yep.
It doesn't matter. Or the second thing I have been doing is do the options first. That way you do the options, you say pick this, pick that. You're kind of thinking about it, and then you go into your standard parts, just pick, 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 pick. So that way you're not in a rhythm, and then you go back to like, who knows what's going on here? You
Yep.
can basically, you have to think about it to begin with, and then you can kind of put your mind in neutral to pick the other five. You're not mind neutral. Then what am I doing? It's okay. This is what I'm doing. Now I can slack off mind wise.
Well, Jeremy,
I
do
don't
you know
know.
how often I walk into a room and forget why I went in there?
Uh, uh
I don't know how often, but
20.
I know it's a lot. I know
You
for sure it's a lot.
Oh, I thought that was a joke. I don't know how often.
No,
You know
but
how often I walk into a room and don't know?
yeah,
I
don't
don't
you?
know.
You go wander off, and you're like, "What was my plan? I had a plan. I needed to do something.
Yeah,
I don't know
yeah,
what it
but
was anymore."
yeah, and I mean, even today, I think you wandered into the room and just you're wondering why the podcast was on, and you're like, oh, I'm
Yeah, why
I'm
is
on
this
it.
on? Jeremy, you're gonna make fun of me. Well, we could edit this out of the Kickstarter episode because it doesn't have to be in there. Yesterday, my friend, Alex, he just
Sure, I do.
got a new welder. He got the last pieces he was going to be welding yesterday, was the first time. He said, Pat, you should come over. I'm going to weld. You need to help me out. And I said, well, Alex, I have to go do a podcast. We have to do a live stream tonight. I got out the camera. I put a shirt on. I set everything up yesterday. And about an hour or a half hour before it would have been time to do the podcast, Chris asked me what I'm doing. I said, well, I'm getting ready to podcast. She said, Pat, that's tomorrow. I'm like, oh, shirt. And I unplugged everything.
Yeah.
And
Well,
I felt bad.
it happens. Well, I'm glad you were thinking about it.
Yeah, usually if I missed at all, I miss by an hour because of time zones. I get mixed up. But this
Oh
was a
yeah.
whole day somehow.
Well,
Don't tell anyone. You two.
sometimes it's the next day in China or the previous day. So that's,
Yeah.
I mean, you're in
Oh,
Texas.
Jeremy, we've been playing. Did you see Jared's video with the big giant F key?
The guy from Subway or
Yeah, no, the guy from Australia. He has a
okay.
big 3D printed F key
Yeah, yeah,
that
yeah,
works.
yeah.
He's been playing Velocidrone with us on Thursday nights in
Oh,
Discord.
really?
Yeah, and he said it's in the afternoon when we do it at 9 p.m. and he's in Australia, so it's like 2 in the afternoon or something. He said, and you know what? I had to ask him, is it 2 in the afternoon? Is it today or tomorrow?
Yeah, but I mean, to him, it's today.
Well, yeah, to him but is it? We do it Thursday nights. Is he playing on Thursday afternoon or is he playing on Friday afternoon? While we're playing on Thursday night, I didn't know.
I don't know.
And
Maybe he's watching.
now that I'm saying this, I'm
If
totally confused. I don't remember what the answer is.
well, if you're watching the podcast, Jared, please
Please let us know.
please tell us
Yeah, Jared, tell us what day it is where you
what they.
are right
Well,
now.
I've got a thing on my thing or whatever in that tells me what time it is in Shenzhen.
Oh,
So
that's
that's
close
pretty
enough.
close enough. So it's tomorrow plus 13 hours. So I guess.
So he was playing Friday afternoon.
Well, the thing is, in Shenzhen right now, it's 10:15 in the morning. So
Today or tomorrow?
tomorrow, but
Yeah.
Australia's got several time zones. I would
Yeah.
have to
But he's
imagine.
well, I don't even know what time it is now. Yeah, he's a few hours off from there. But that's fine. It's tomorrow. So he plays on Fridays when we play on
Okay.
Thursday. I'm gonna remember that.
Well, that's good, I guess.
The
So
future. Our friend
yeah,
James Cobb, he tells us that's the future. Is
it's the future.
when he plays.
Um, yeah. I'm trying to I'm trying to think if there's anything else I need to say about Kickstarter. I guess I'll say you know we had guys with Project Alpha, Mike and Ryan and stuff. They were like, oh, it's pretty hard, and yeah, I believe them, but I think
Do you believe them more now that you
I
did?
believe them more now. It's yeah, it's I guess I keep thinking of the mate. It's it's the difference between knowing the path and walking the path, Pat. That's what Cowboy Curtis said.
Is that
So
true? Did he really? Did he say that? Did he say that on HBO or on Saturday morning?
I don't even know anymore.
We
I
don't
think he
know.
was.
Or was it Morpheus? I'm very like I'm literally thinking you're talking about Cowboy Curtis, and not.
Yeah, yeah.
But
It's a
I have a Kickstarter. I have a question about Kickstarter, Jeremy.
yeah. What is it?
Oh, Brian. Well, first, before I ask the question, Brian's smart. He asked Google what time it is right now in Western Australia. Brian, did she tell you what day it is in Western Australia? But but to get back to the podcast bit here, are you prepared to do your next Kickstarter? Are you going to use this currency that you've earned of having a successful Kickstarter to move into another one in the future?
Oh, I don't know. It's a bit of a mystery. You know, I guess it's I've I've got a product that I want to put out there, but you
Do I know
I,
about it?
you do actually.
I mean, I won't say anything, but I just want to make sure I know what you're talking about.
Well, yeah, you do know about it. You might have a sample of it, but I think I'm gonna put that one out on Tindy. But anyway, I guess my fear is it's like I've done a pretty good job on this so far. I think you know, assuming I'll fulfill everything else, but um, it's like, oh, am I gonna have another good idea in the future? You know, I don't know.
Are
Maybe
you going to have another good idea?
I'll have ideas. I'm sure,
I'm
but
sure. Are you going to iterate on this one?
I think I've got a few ideas for iterating in this one. So, you know, even though I'm quite happy with how it looks right now, I do have a couple ideas. So, you know, I guess I could put out a Kickstarter for a version, you know, 2.1 or something. Or, you know, I think you know, we were talking about Tindy. I think this, you know, if you didn't get on the Kickstarter, which is fine, you know, we do have I do have it up on Tindy for pre-order right now, and it'll be up there, you know, hopefully within a month or so.
Are you going to continue to sell the version 1 until, or have they run out yet?
JC Pro Macro One, which is on Kickstarter, has not run out yet, so you can buy one now if you like. Um, I'll say it's fully functional, but it's not as good as this one.
I
'Cause,
kind of
you know,
like the one.
you do?
Yeah, I
Okay.
wish it had LEDs though, because I really rely on the LEDs. I change the colors of the lights based on what is going on over here on my macro
Yeah,
pad,
that
and I
is nice.
very much rely on that.
You have it set up very nicely. Mine is somewhat the same way. Basically, the standard program is it goes from basically volume control, which is kind of cool. You can um, let's see, it makes the
Uh-oh. Oh, Jeremy. Oh,
uh,
Jeremy. We're looking at the ceiling now.
oh, well, that's weird. I
Oh,
think,
you.
oh,
That
can
was
you
a
hear me?
coincidence.
I think I bumped something. Just a second. Yeah. Can you hear me still, Pat?
I can hear you still, Jerry. Can you
Okay,
still
because
hear
you're
me?
looking at my webcam, and I can. So I don't know what's going on with my camera. Let me just adjust something. Just a second.
Well, I see a textured wall, or it looks just like my wall, except it's not green. If anybody was wondering, this is what the texture on my walls looks like. Back here.
Well, you can see me again, but I don't look quite as good
It's
because
true.
it's my webcam. I guess it popped off to that. You know, I don't know what happened. I bumped something and all of a sudden it went back to this, back to
Well,
that.
don't feel bad, Jeremy. When we did the Butterwhat live stream last week, I goofed things up twice and had to reconnect.
Huh.
So
Well, let's see. You
it
can't
happened.
change. It says you can't change devices while recording. Yet I
But it
did
happened.
somehow. But it happened. Tell you what. Let me just punch this and see what happens. Can I go ahead and I'll reconnect real fast? Okay.
Sure.
Okay.
Hello, everyone. It's just me now. until Jeremy reconnects on account of technical difficulties. Yeah, I should have something prepared here for when this happens. Like, I should have something to hold up and show you guys. So I'm looking around. I've got nothing too exciting. Brian tells me it is definitely tomorrow in Australia. He told us that in the chat here. Brian, I have I have 2 pieces of metal that are welded together that Alex gave me today. He's very proud that he was able to make 2 pieces of metal stick together. And I'm very confused now. If you guys could see this, I'm over here in OBS. I'm over here up above my camera in Riverside, and I'm a few, like 30 seconds behind over here in YouTube. It's very confusing. And I'm over here in Discord looking very concerned in that screenshot. Oh, duh. Jeremy, sorry, I didn't hit accept right away. I was too busy telling everybody how confused I was about all the different copies of me that are in front of me here.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I think somehow I hit something and it just went to webcam for some reason, even though it says I can't change when I'm recording. But anyway, what were we talking about?
What were we
exactly?
talking about, Jeremy?
I don't know. We're still talking about Kickstarter.
We've still been talking about Kickstarter, and we were talking about your old macro pads up on Tindy, the smaller one.
Oh, right. So yeah, this will be up on Tindy. Eventually. I mean, hopefully within a month or so. And
you're not allowed to sell them on Tindy until you fulfill every Kickstarter order, is my understanding.
Is that who's now?
Well,
that's reasonable.
That's Kickstarter's rule, I think, right?
I think, I don't know if it's not it's not an official rule. It's certainly an unofficial rule.
It's Jeremy's rule for sure.
The thing I'm a little bit worried about though is certain people have not filled out the surveys. So
that's their fault, not your fault. They can't hold you up from continuing to move forward.
Because I don't feel bad about that, but if somebody else has a problem with it, then
Yeah.
But but yeah. So anyway, fulfillment's going well. I guess my advice for anybody looking to get into Kickstarter will be, it's probably harder than you would think it is. I mean, I designed this macro pad, and I thought,
Jeremy, we've got a question.
Okay.
From our friend Twisted Grim from Discord.
Oh, excellent.
Can Jeremy talk more about the experience of designing in KiCad for a Kickstarter item? Any different? ?
Ooh, that's an interesting question. For a Kickstarter item, I'd say, I mean, I would say there's no real difference as far as designing for a Kickstarter item versus designing for yourself. I mean, I think the one thing you have to look at is at some point, if you've designed stuff, or that's the wrong thing. If you design stuff around a board, it's kind of makes it hard to change later. I mean, like the back piece, at some point I had to change the board, make it a little bit wider so it could avoid hitting the screw. That was a little bit, I'll say the one difference, just maybe not KiCad, but just generally speaking, you design something in Kickstarter or in KiCad, and generally, like, I would sell it on Tindy, and then iterate from there. But with Kickstarter, you would design something, and then you get, you might get some feedback from people, say on Discord. You guys have been extremely helpful. You might get some feedback and say, okay, I need to change this, change that. I think there's a lot more time for iteration before you actually sell something, which I think is very, very helpful. And I think help make this, take this from a, good enough product to something that was really, really good. I think, probably the biggest thing was when I first started doing this, I was having the headers for the Pro Micro board coming up from the top, just because that was kind of a consequence of how the original was designed to have the the Pro Micro board on top of the board. Um, I think I don't know. I think Brian Moses convinced me to. I don't think he basically put it on the bottom, redo the
Do the work
traces,
now. Don't
do
do.
the work now, and that was probably the biggest thing.
Yeah.
But
And for Tindy, you'd probably buy. They're in the beginning they were just bare PCBs you were getting, so you can get them in small quantities for a reasonable. So you were probably getting them by the 10 or 20 at a time instead of 200 at a time.
right. So yeah, I think it's you got to think. Well, there's just a lot more iteration. I wouldn't say it's hard for me to say there's a big difference as far as KiCad specifically, but just generally speaking, there's a lot more time for iteration, and I guess the fact that you can put it out there, and it's not like you have to keep it secret before you show people. It's like if you have it up on Kickstarter, you've already kind of, I don't want to say you've laid claim to it, but it's already out there, and people already know that it's your product. You've already designed it, so at that point, you have this certain period where you can get feedback and not have to worry about it, and you will get feedback if you're out there on Discord or social channels or whatever. And I think that's extremely valuable. Um, KiCad specific, I think it's more general than that. I hope that's
I think you've done a good job answering the question, Jeremy.
okay. Yeah,
And
thanks
James
thanks for the
agrees
question.
too.
All right, good.
So and it was his question, so it's a
Yeah.
good.
Well, good. So yeah, more time for iteration. I think that's the biggest thing. Um, but yeah, I mean, I'll say Kickstarter is probably harder than I thought it would be, and I set the due date way farther out than I thought I would need it to be, and it's ended up actually being a lot more accurate than I thought it would be, just because it's there's things you don't think about. I mean, there's things you run out of. Oh, I need more tape, no more solder, whatever. Um, we we had another baby in the couple a month or so ago.
Congratulations, Jeremy.
Oh, thank you. So I figure it's a lot of things to think about, I guess. That's a big. I'm not saying that's not a big deal, but it's
Yeah.
obviously things happen. Things happen in your life, everybody's lives. So you got to just think about that and give yourself time.
So
I guess.
but you're telling me this next project that you're working on, you're not going to kickstart it.
I'm not thinking I will. It's so kind of going back to Tindy, I've had a good relationship with them, done pretty well selling stuff with them, and what I decided to do, I don't really know where I got this idea, but it was somehow I thought, with the Raspberry Pi, you could make a case out of a PCB. It'd be pretty easy. You just make a top and a bottom and have standoffs. And that's what I did. I'm going to call it the JC Pi Protect. Um, I debated calling it JC Pi Proto, but Pat seemed to think that more people care about protecting their Pi than prototyping on it, which I think is probably accurate.
Yeah. I
But
think prototyping is a big deal with Arduinos.
right. So basically, this comes in. It comes in.
Can I hold mine up too, Jeremy?
Yeah, please do hold yours
have-
up. But it comes in two flavors, and yours has the.
I have some. I glued some lights to mine.
Yeah, so it comes in two flavors. Pat has here. We're holding ours up. I feel like this is like what you would do in Voltron or something. We'd like hold each up,
Voltron.
and then we'd combine into the giant robot or something.
Oh, and I missed
know?
my taped on lights up. They're rotating.
So I'm not guaranteeing that if you hold yours up to another one with.
The Wonder Twins.
Yeah, Wonder Twin. I never saw that one, but exactly. You hold yours up, you combine your powers, and then you become a giant robot. Like
Now, you know what I think is fantastic here, Jeremy?
what's that?
That you have the pins labeled over here.
Yeah. So
I mean, I'm aware it's on the wrong side, but there's an arrow to show me, and the fan has to be where the fan is. I understand that. This
right.
is fantastic because I never know.
So yeah, that's one thing that was a bit of a I don't know, maybe I don't want to say an afterthought, but something I didn't really think of to begin with. But basically, I was just like, well, what can I put on the silk screen? in the top of this, I put labels for like 3.3 volts, inputs, outputs, etc., and I point it to the GPIO pins. And as I've been experimenting with it, that's been such a wonderful feature
Well, I want to
because
tell you how stupid I feel today, Jeremy.
okay,
Because I started to take my Pi out of my. I have this 3D printed case that I modified with I should hide so it focuses with my little Uber Lights thing on there. I took it out of here. I started to put it in here, and then I didn't have the right standoff, so I aborted and was going to put it back in here. And I said, well, I have to plug the Uber Lights back in, and I didn't know which pins they had to go on. I'm stupid. I didn't just read this. I Googled it. I'm looking for it. I'm trying to fit. Like, yeah, I could have just read this, Jeremy. It would have been right here.
well, it's amazing because basically the one version of this has the top has like basically smooth top more or less, and the other version has a prototyping version on it. And I was hooking up some stuff for to demonstrate it. And I was hooking up these lights, and I hooked up a fan as well with an Easy Fan 2 board that we talked about earlier. I was like, oh, where's the 5 volts again? I was like,
Yeah.
oh, I can just look over here to the left, and um, it's really a fantastic feature. I don't know why it's not. I don't know. I'm surprised it's not more prominent, but I'm pretty happy with that.
Yeah. This is a super sturdy case, Jeremy. PCBs are made out of fiberglass, right? That's some kind of
Yeah, FR4.
FR4, and it's sturdy stuff.
Yeah,
I mean, I
it's
can't make a drone out of this. I'd destroy it, but I could huck this at the wall and it would survive. I mean, maybe I'd smash the connectors off because they're hanging out, but the case would be fine.
yeah. Well, I guess one other thing I should highlight about the case, it's got the GPIO pins. It's got a space for that, and then the fan. I haven't ever seen a design like this exactly either, but it's got a square hole in the middle, so you could put a heat sink on it, and then what it's got not holes for mounting. It's got slots for mounting, which basically allows you to use, in theory, different size fans because the fans could be bigger or smaller. I've only tried it with a 30 millimeter fan, but theoretically you could fit something a little bit different on there.
And
You
it
know, I
looks
don't know
like you
that.
have slots for the camera and the display.
Right, I've got slots for
Okay.
those as well too. So I haven't actually tested that, but hopefully that'll work. Um, I've got some on the bottom. I've got my mounting holes and such. Pat suggests that I put a interesting design on one side. I don't know if I will or not, but that's
Yeah, they should
because I can't.
definitely be different so you can make a choice on because it's reversible technically. You can flip it
Yeah,
over so you can put it on either way.
no, that's a good idea. I don't know if I'll sell it with this or not, but you can put it with these for my something I sell on
Oh,
Tindy.
is that what these holes are for? I was trying to figure that out.
Yeah, they're mounting holes, and then one of them can, or I guess either of them really, they could be used with a DIN rail adapter. So if you wanted to put your Raspberry Pi in an industrial case, not that I'm necessarily warranting this for industrial use.
Do you mean to tell me that I can make a mount to snap this onto my baker's rack next to my CNC machine?
If it's got a DIN
Let's-
rail, absolutely.
No, well, it doesn't, but I can make an adapter that would just go right onto that round metal.
Yeah, I don't see why not.
You're smarter than I thought you were, Jeremy.
Oh, thank you, Pat.
You are quite welcome.
That could
Quite
be
welcome.
it depends on that could be a compliment depending on how smart you thought I was before.
But this is amazing, Jeremy. I'm really pleased
Oh,
with this.
well, thank you. That's very nice of you to say. It's I feel like my PCB design skills, it's good enough, but it's not like I do anything that advanced. It's just sometimes I have these ideas that maybe people haven't thought of, if that makes any sense.
It makes sense.
Because I have a lot of ideas, and a lot of them you don't want to know about. Not that they're ominous, but a lot
Well,
of them.
you should post them into Discord and people will tell you that they'll either confirm or deny your intuition that it's a good or a bad idea.
Well, That's a good point. But most of them I know
Is
are
that
bad
true,
ideas.
James? James says that a lot of 3D printers are starting to use DIN rails for the electronics.
Really?
Is this a
Well,
Voron thing, James? He'll tell. He's like 30 seconds behind.
oh, okay.
We're 30 seconds behind, so he won't answer that right away.
Well, that's interesting. Well, that's great because I'm a big fan of DinRail. You know, I think as I mentioned, I used to work in industry, and I used to hate anything except for screw terminals and spring terminals. But I've come to like soldering okay too. Actually, I like soldering better than I used to, but
You're
you
getting
know.
better at it, Jeremy. I've noticed in your more recent videos. It seems like you've had some practice.
Oh, thank you. I can say that's about the same thing as me being
And
smarter, me
I
being
saw
smarter
that
than I
you're.
thought you were, or
Well,
I
we
was.
have evidence as to how well you used to solder. You have
I
videos.
I was very bad at one point in my life.
But I see
So
you've upgraded to a TS100
that's
soldering
right.
iron. How do you like
It's
it?
I like it.
Because
I
I've upgraded to a Pinesil.
a pine sol.
It's a well, the TS100 and TS80. I guess they're both open source, and the Pinesil is the Pine 64 computer people
Okay.
make a TS80 compatible. They're like $25 for the
Okay.
Pinesil, and I said I'm never going to use this. Brian got me one, and I said, why would I use this? I have this nice 80-watt big honking soldering iron. Why would I ever use this tiny little soldering iron? And at first I hated it because I kept touching the button. You know, I'd
Okay.
pick it up and hold it, and I'd hit the down arrow by mistake. But I've stopped. Once I stopped doing that, it's a fantastic little $25 soldering iron.
Hmm.
Way better than my $100 soldering station.
Really? Yeah, because
And your
actually,
TS100 should be at least as good, I imagine.
I like it. A friend of mine, friend of mine said that I need to upgrade my soldering station, but I don't know. I think the TS100 is pretty good,
It
but
is quite good.
it's a whole lot better than my Radio Shack model or whatever it was back before I had the TS100.
Yep,
So,
you're doing
but
well.
yeah, I guess that's all the stuff I've been working on. Yeah, that's what I've
How
been
much do
working.
we have to pay to buy a Pie Protect at Untindy? Is that a?
It's
Have you
well,
decided that yet?
I haven't quite decided yet. How much would you pay for one, Pat? Should we
Boy, I
auction?
don't know. I'm the kind of guy that if I want a case for my pie, I'm going to turn on my 3D printer.
Yeah, and
It's tough for me to say.
I hear that. I'll say that it'll be between $5 and $30.
Well, I would certainly pay 5, but I don't know that I'd pay 30, Jeremy. And
Okay.
are you going to do kits with a little fan and everything?
Yeah, so I probably will do a fan. Basically, I'm then thinking what I'll do, since I have this Easy Fan 2 board, probably I'll have like an option that you can just like pop on an Easy Fan 2 and a fan, or I don't know. I haven't quite figured it out because, from Kickstarter I've figured out it's very important to figure out what options you want to add. Otherwise it just becomes kind of
Can I tell you about a thing that I'm bummed out about that I haven't found a solution for yet?
okay.
Because it
Sure.
might be a problem that you have.
Well, if you got a problem, I'll solve it.
Will you really? Let me pop this case open here so I can pull the wires out. You know the DuPont connectors, the little
Sure.
breadboard wires. Well, I want to be able to connect my Uber Lights boards. I want to be able to send out an Uber Lights with, DuPont headers on the other end of the. But DuPont headers are terrible. They're so tall. Jeremy, do you know a way that I can connect to regular pins with some? Do you know of a lower profile way to do this?
Are you interested in soldering?
Well,
No, you,
that's the answer everybody gives me, Jeremy, and I would be happy to do that, but I'd like to be able to I'd like to be able to 3D print a case, stick an Uber Lights in it with wires coming out of it, and mail it to someone, and they could just plug it in. And
I mean, I guess I've never done it, but I've heard of a technique called wire wrapping. I don't know. I'm sure you
yeah,
have too.
I bet no end user wants to. I mean, I know about wire wrapping. We used to do it at the telephone company. They have a little gun that goes whoop and
Hmm.
zips the.
Man, I'm trying to think. I got some for the Easy Fan 2, incidentally. I got some low profile 90-degree headers, male headers that work pretty well. Now that's not the same. That's not what you need, but maybe there's something.
Yeah,
Maybe there's something like.
I tried like the ribbon cables, like that look like the old IDE cables, but they're just as tall as a DuPont cable. By the time the little protectors across the back and everything, I was bummed out when I dug one of those out of my parts bin.
Does it have to be shielded around the outside?
Uh, yeah, I don't know.
Because you could just crimp the inside of it and onto there.
Yeah, well, I can't crimp. I'm not going to have the end user is going to have the pie. The customer will probably already have a pie that they're going to put inside the case.
I don't know, Pat. I guess I won't solve it. I just wanted to make another
I don't have.
reference.
It's a hard problem, Jeremy. James wants to know, how do us guys, that's you and me, Jeremy, how do we feel about PCBs with pogo pins for easy attach accessories on a Pi or similar?
How do we feel about?
Well, you know what a pogo pin is, Jeremy.
Yeah, I know what a pogo pin is.
But our not all our viewers know, Jeremy.
Yeah, so a pogo pin is basically it's like an electro connector that has a spring on it that looks like a pogo stick. So you poke it in something and it has that's kind of interesting effect. Poke it in something and
so if you have like 3 or 4 of them in a row, they don't have to all be perfect. When they touch the PCB, they'll all get pushed down. Like my 3 fingers here, the first one will hit and then.
So is he talking about actually putting the pogo pins on the Pi, or is he talking about an accessory, or?
I assume on the accessory, like on a hat. Not a hat. What do they call them on a Pi? A cape? Hat? Cape?
Not either. No, it's hat. Hardware attached to top.
But hats are. Oh, it's shields are Arduinos.
Shields are Arduinos. Capes are Beagle board.
Oh,
I think.
Jeez.
Yeah, I like pogo pins.
I don't. Pogo pins are pretty tall, though. You'd have to have a pretty tall accessory to stick on top of your Pi to get the pogo onto.
I mean, I like them, but really depends on the context. I think magnets might be pretty cool.
Oh, I love magnets, Jeremy.
I do.
Oh, they're amazing.
No, but I mean, I think Apple had something like that basically like a power thing that would pop off if somebody.
Yeah, the MagSafe.
MagSafe. So
yeah.
So something like that for a Pi would be pretty cool. What you would use a pogo. I guess
and you would need female pogo pins, and I don't even know if those exist.
Is that? I don't know.
Somebody will tell me if I'm wrong. I've only ever seen the male.
Depending on the context, it could be awesome, but I don't know.
So you could go to tindy.com/whatever Jeremy's URL is, and you could go buy yourself a Pi Protect by the time this is on the air for somewhere between $5 and $35.
That's right. So yeah, that'd be awesome. Or just look up Jeremy. Just Google Jeremy Cook Tindy. I should come up.
Boy, and these. Oh, but you need to send the standoffs. I was gonna say these would ship in an envelope for 25 cents. How much is the stand? They're not 25 cents anymore.
Yeah.
42 cents,
yeah.
48
yeah.
cents, 52
back,
cents.
Back in 1985, you could send them send them back with Marty McFly or whatever.
Yeah. Speaking of shipping, Jeremy, you have on our list that you'd like to talk about the TV shows that we're watching right now.
Oh, yeah.
Is that too big of a jump?
No, I figure we're about to wrap it up, right? So we'll go ahead and give a little. I figure that's a good thing to tell. But Pat, is there anything you want to talk about? I feel like you've been asking all the questions. I mean, I guess that was the point tonight. But
I don't know.
Anything you've been working on, or?
No, not today. I'm okay. I just talked about so many things last week on the other live stream on the Butter What channel, so okay. I'm kind of.
Yeah, but I guess just figure that's always a good service. I'm always like interested in what people are watching because trying to find stuff to watch. Um,
So it
so
says
you know,
here you're enjoying The Expanse.
I saw the whole thing, enjoyed The Expanse.
Don't say too
Pretty,
much. Don't spoil it. I
all right,
haven't
I'm not
gotten
going
to
to
the
spoil
last
anything.
season yet.
I'll say there were two. There's a main plot line and kind of like a subplot line. Main plot line resolved itself pretty nicely, but there was like a subplot line that I just felt like was kind of like, why
We
do they
didn't
even
need
have
that
this in
here.
here? You don't need that there. So
That's how I
but
felt about the Matrix movie, the new Matrix movie. Did you watch the new Matrix?
I didn't. Was it worth watching?
I mean, it's nowhere near as exciting as the first one was in 1998 or whenever that was, 99. That was
Was it
very
better
exciting.
than the third one?
It was way better than the third one.
Okay. How was it compared to the second?
Uh, I've always said that I think there were about like 2 3/4 really good, or 1 3/4 really good Matrix movies, and like the last 20 minutes of the second movie just killed the story. Right? It just everything was could have made sense, and then it was like, now this is just weird. I don't. But yeah,
Yeah.
it's better than the second and third movie. I think
Okay. Well, maybe
it's
I'll.
fun. It's enough
Is it
fun.
is
It
that on
makes enough
HBO?
sense.
Is it on HBO still, or is it
I don't think it is.
past? Yeah.
I think it was the end of January they took it down.
Okay.
It'll be back up though, Jeremy. You'll be able to
All
see
right.
it again.
So maybe I'll watch it, or get it at the Redbox or library or whatever. So
Yeah.
I'll tell you what, my kids get all kinds of movies from the library. It's
Do they really?
quite the. Oh yeah, it's a great resource. So
Now, do you
you
have your
know,
kids watching? I should know how old your kids are, Jeremy, but I'm not good at. Even if you told me, I don't understand how
uh,
old they are.
no, that's fine. You
It's
can ask. I
it's
mean, I prefer to keep my family vague. You know what I'm
okay.
saying?
Well, that's
So,
fine.
but you can
Well,
ask.
here's my real question: are you teaching your children to watch the TV shows you grew up watching? Like we have Brian's son watching Knight Rider with us, and he thinks it's
No, not
bananas.
really. I feel like I feel like I need to introduce my son to Star Wars eventually because he's
Yes.
like he's pretty into it. But it's like, how am I going to get my hands on a decent non-special edition copy of the first three movies? That's like I can't have him watching that. That's ludicrous. But that's neither here nor there. So no, not really. He's still a little young for that.
Okay.
But maybe not Knight Rider. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. Knight Rider would have been new when I was like 6, I think,
Okay.
and we thought it was really cool when I was a kid. Really
Never
cool. I mean, it
watched
was a
that.
car that talked. My uncle at the time, he bought a mid 70s Corvette at that time. And I thought it was a cool car, but you know what? I asked him a question that's very offensive to a Corvette owner. He still has that car, I think.
Okay.
I asked I asked him, why didn't you buy a Trans Am like from Knight Rider? I was 6. I didn't understand. I didn't
Yeah.
understand this was the better car. I didn't know.
Who's to say?
Yeah.
Um,
Brian says that Gunner, that's Brian's son, has been binge watching the Ghostbusters cartoon.
okay, that's interesting. Actually, I've heard the Star Wars cartoon is pretty good. I haven't watched that. Maybe cartoons of
There's a couple of different Star Wars cartoons, aren't there?
there's some. I guess
There's
the
too
thing is
much. There's too.
there's too much. There's too much, Pat. Because
The Mandalorian was fantastic.
I
Have you
heard that
seen
was
The
pretty good.
Mandalorian yet? You don't have Disney
I have not
Plus. Oh,
because I've children. If I get Disney Plus, if we
you will
get rid
have
of
it
Disney
forever.
Plus, there'll be a riot. I think so. It's a I don't know. I'm but I do want to see The Mandalorian. But
It's a
you
good
know,
show. You'll have to
it's
pirate it. Get it on the piratebay.com.
it's too bad. Maybe they could make a crossover with like Back to the Future, the DeLorean. Something.
Oh, see, I'd watch that, but that's probably like Rick and Morty. Is that crossover, right?
Oh
Almost,
yeah.
sort of.
Is Rick and Morty still on HBO or not? I gotta
It's
ask.
somewhat. Yeah, it's on HBO. Yeah, they
Okay.
have it on the HBO app.
Interesting. Well, I don't have HBO right now. I kind of cycle through things like a wheel of time, as you might say. And I wasn't a fan of that show, to be
I
honest.
I watched The Wheel of Time and I enjoyed it enough. I mean, I don't know I would
heard
never go out and say, "Oh, you got to watch The Wheel of Time." You got to watch, Jeremy. I wouldn't say that.
I just thought
I
it was
don't feel like I wasted my time though.
Right,
Sometimes
I
I
didn't-
watch a show and I feel like I wasted my time.
I didn't think it was that bad, but I didn't think it was. I just heard the books were spectacular, and I was just expecting more out of it. So,
Yeah.
you know, it's.
I remember trying to read the first book. I don't want to say trying, but I don't do well reading fantasy where they describe all the leaves on the trees and the way the grass is doing what I don't care. I'm like 4 chapters in and nothing's happened. I'm going to read something else.
Yeah, no, I agree. Some books should just be cut down a little bit. I think.
My friend Cliff used to do that. He used to have those yellow
yeah,
books in the bookstore that we used to write our book reports from.
I will say book-wise, last series I read was the Silo series. I don't know if anybody watching has seen that or listening, but those are some excellent books. It's basically about these. I don't want to give too much away because there's like several levels of reveals in the whole thing, but I guess it's not revealing much. But basically, these people live in a silo underground, like a missile silo, basically.
Okay.
And that's all I'll say for now. But it was
like on Kimmy Schmidt.
Yeah, kind of like Kimmy Schmidt, but gigantic. Yeah.
Fallout. Those Fallout games.
Yeah, I never played those. I don't know. But
I never did. I played the game before Fallout. I played the team that made Fallout made another game before they worked. Yeah, I don't know the history of the company, but they didn't have the rights to continue using the name. So
okay.
It's a different game.
Okay. Okay.
But that was the 80s, Jeremy, when I played that. That was
what game was
early
this?
90s. It was called Wasteland.
I feel like I've heard of that. How can they not? How is Wasteland a patentable?
Well, it's
name anyway?
the whole whatever. I mean, if you're making a part 2 based on the characters.
Oh,
and
yeah. Okay. Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah. So you didn't like The Wheel of Time?
I mean, I only watched like most of one episode. So
did you watch The Witcher?
I watched like maybe
I
2
enjoyed
episodes
The
of
Witcher
that
a
one.
lot more than Wheel of Time.
I think that was a better show, but the guy just throws me off a little bit because he's like, it's like, how old is this guy? Because he seems pretty young, but then he's got like long, like very gray hair. Something doesn't seem right
And
about
if you
that.
didn't watch the whole season, I don't want to tell you
Okay,
how much
maybe
time
I'll go back
goes
and watch
by.
it.
It's they did a good job of whatever I don't want to spoil here to anyone.
Yeah, okay.
But they did a good job of it.
Maybe I'll pick that up. I'm on. I don't have Netflix at this point. We've got Apple Plus and Amazon. So
Okay.
and I watched a couple episodes of Reacher. Probably watch some more of it, but
Is this something I should watch?
yeah, pretty good. It's a I'd describe it as a I was listening to. Anyway, I've heard this type of movie basically described as a Western. Basically, somebody comes into a town where things aren't right. It cleans things up. And that seems kind of like what's happening here in a way.
Okay.
Not sort of, but my problem with the show is this guy looks about like, mid-90s Arnold Schwarzenegger. But so far in the show, he's had a beer, a piece of apple pie that he didn't eat, and like some sort of like Snickers bar or something. And I think maybe he ate like some guy's meal at a prison.
You're saying he needs more calories to maintain this.
I'm saying the guy hasn't. Yeah, I'm just saying, you gotta, if a guy looks like that, you gotta justify it somehow.
This is the realism Jeremy is looking
That's
for.
what
If the guy is big, he's got to be eaten.
Because did you see, I know you're a fan of J.K., not Rowling, but Simmons.
Oh,
In
yeah, he's fun.
last episode of Goliath, did you see that?
I missed the last season. I've not seen the newest season of Goliath, I don't think.
Anyway, that guy's pretty ripped. And, it shows his muscles off a bit, but it also shows him working out all the time and eating a lot. So, you know what?
Yeah.
That's what I expect out of that. If
Now, Brian told me I'm doing a bad job keeping up with the chat because one of us is always talking while I'm reading this, and then we're already
Sure.
talking about a new show. But they're doing a good job talking to each other here.
Oh, good.
But Brian said he watched all of WandaVision in his attempt to catch up with the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And I want to know if he's had the song stuck in his head.
I heard there was a song. I heard
There's a
people weren't
song. It's
happy. Heard some people
fantastic.
weren't happy about it.
Is that true? Who was unhappy about it?
Supposedly, people were unhappy because they expect some sort of big reveal in the after post credit scene. And I'll be honest, that sort of that sort of rabbit hole. I just feel like that at some point I just couldn't deal with just too much
It's
stuff.
too much.
I mean, how many,
Brian says you need to stop jumping to conclusions and watch more Reacher. How much he eats is a recurring theme, Brian says. That's
Okay.
Brian McMoses down there in the YouTube
All right,
chat.
well that's good, Brian. I think I have this invention that I made. It's called a jump to conclusions mat. And I'm gonna put it on Kickstarter pretty soon, I think. No, but that's fine. I probably will watch more Reacher. But it's a good enough show. But not like a must watch. I'll say The Expanse. Gotta watch that. Gotta watch Counterpart. That was awesome too.
I wish they didn't cancel Counterpart. I enjoyed where that was trying to go.
I think it ended at a logical. I was happy.
I felt
with
like
the
it was a
ending.
little rushed to an ending. Maybe.
Anyway,
But that's fine. It doesn't watch. I agree though. Counterpart's fantastic. I would watch both seasons.
and I guess I gotta ask you one more question before we probably wrap this up, Pat.
Sure.
Have you finished The Head yet?
No.
Uh,
I tried
well.
to one day and I realized I waited so long. I started to continue where I left off and I was like, what in the hell is going on? I forgot enough and I didn't know who anybody was anymore and I figured I'm in trouble now. I don't know how I can't go back to the beginning.
Yeah. Well, okay. Well,
I goofed up. I did a bad job, Jeremy.
I just enjoyed the whole scenery, being on an Antarctic ice station thing. But
Yeah.
anyway, yeah. Well, Pat, I think that's probably a good place to leave it.
I think so.
So,
What do we do a sign off like this is a podcast? Do we need to tell everybody where to find your stuff?
yeah, you could, as far as if you want to find me, you can look up Jeremy S. Cook, and I'm on Twitter at Jeremy S. Cook, on YouTube at Jeremy S. Cook, and if you search for me on Tindy for any of the stuff that I've mentioned, it's on my stores or will be in some form or fashion. Just look up Jeremy Cook Tindy or Jeremy S. Cook Tindy. I'll be there. What about you, Pat?
I'm
Where
on the
can we find
internet,
you?
Jeremy. I have I have a website. It's patshead.com, and everything else you need to find about me. It's all the links to the important stuff are in the sidebar, like my YouTube channel and my social media stuff, and
Yeah, that's a good point. So,
yeah,
yeah,
it's all
basically,
there. And it'll be in the description of this video, and I bet we do it on. I bet it's somewhere on SoundCloud too. I bet we do.
it's somewhere or other.
Yeah,
If you
you'll
try to find
me.
us, if you look hard enough, you'll probably find us.
Yeah,
So, all right. Well, good.
it was good talking to you,
guys.
Jeremy.
Good talking to
Oh
you,
my
Pat.
gosh, we've got spam on
Really?
YouTube here.
Well, that's like pretty impressive that we're that popular that we
Oh
get
my
spam
goodness.
now. Well, should we sign off?
We should. I'm sorry. I was canceling the spam, and I don't know.
Okay.
I'm slow because I don't know which button. I've never had to do that before. I didn't know which
Oh,
buttons
okay.
to click.
Yeah.
But I'm just checking the chat to make sure we didn't have to. But yeah, we're good. You guys all have a good night.
Bye bye.
Where's,